Have you ever wondered whether the problems in the world today would exist if we had deeper connection to ourselves, others, and the environment and acted from that place?
Welcome to the Conscious Action Podcast with your hosts Brian Berneman and Kayla Greenville, who believe that connection is the key to taking conscious action as individuals and creating a better world.
We are here to raise awareness and inspire meaningful action by sharing stories, knowledge, and conversations with thought leaders and change makers.
From sustainability to well-being and everything related to conscious living, our mission is to empower you to be the change that you want to see in the world. Welcome everyone to a new episode of the Conscious Action Podcast. I am Brian Berneman, your host. And for this episode, I have the pleasure to be joined all the way from California in the US by Phillip Mountrose. Thank you, Phillip, so much for taking the time to be here with us. And if you wouldn't mind, would you be able to introduce yourself to our audience?
Yes, I think I'm capable of doing that. Thank you, Brian, for inviting me on the Conscious Action Podcast. I like the title of your show and your shows. Phillip Mountrose is my name. I'm an embodied human being like the rest of us, directed by my soul, hopefully more and more consciously. And I'm using the gifts and skills I came with and I'm developing, which include coaching and writing and communicating and helping people to awaken as I awaken myself more. And that also includes energy healing and life purpose, life path development.
Cool. And would you mind sharing, Phillip, a little bit around how did you discover death and how did you get into this path? Yes.
Well, I'll start back in my 20s, which is quite a few, 4 or 5 decades ago, really. Even though I'm in the latter part of my life, I feel like I have a long way to go, and there's stages we're all going through. But in my 20s, Brian, I realized there was more to life. I wanted to make an impact in the world. I wanted to do something. I like the idea of communicating and helping people and sharing and teaching. And I went to film school at UCLA in Los Angeles, and that wasn't quite right. And I had like a little student film that was an utter flop. You know, it's like seeing your false ego paraded in front of everyone. It's like a big belly flop in front of you, like invite everyone around to see what you're doing, who might, help you or be interested in you, and you put out, a terrible presentation, which I thought was going to be good. And when I looked at it, I go, wow, I'm really kind of a shambles here. And that took me into a tailspin. The good news, like almost all the setbacks we have in life, myself, speaking for myself, but I believe for others, was it started an intense spiritual seeking journey, something you're probably quite aware of and people on your show talk about. Mm-hmm. And some people start early on, like I did. Other people kind of hit a crisis, a transition, midlife, 30s, 40s, 50s. And I, at the time, which was way pre-internet, there wasn't so much available. There were religions, which I studied, Japanese tea ceremony, Buddhist, Naropa institutes, meditation retreats, different psychology. I eventually found a Gurdjieff Ouspensky organization, which some people are aware of, those, the sages, spiritual kind of gurus of the previous century. And there's groups that have been based around those people's teachings, those men's, they're quite brilliant. And it's a way of actually waking up. The fourth way, it's called waking up in everyday society. Instead of becoming a monk and being reclusive, it's doing what like a monk would do, being aware, meditative, sort of disidentified from the world. And so it sort of teaches you how to do that. And that's very beautiful and wonderful. I still love that. And I've learned incredibly profound teachings, which I share and teach with my wife and partner, Jane Mountrose, our programs. Yet there came to be some pretty big obstacles that were kind of growing more and more evident. We couldn't turn our eyes away from the elephant in the room, shall we say. And what was that elephant? Well, what tends to happen in spiritual groups and organizations and religions, to a sense, what tends to be the sort of the Achilles heel, or the sort of the cutoff point? Do you know where I'm going on this? I'm just curious if this is something.
I think so, but I don't want to assume. So
Okay.
yeah, tell
Well,
us.
I won't hold you in suspense any longer, or the audience. There is a guru, usually a charismatic, powerful person, very confident, who is the channel, the mouthpiece, the only way you get to oneness, source, awakening. But just being in the group, you're part of the chosen people, right? Because you're in the chosen group. Everyone else, well, depends what your orientation is. They're excluded, they're damned, they don't get it, whatever. So there's sort of an exclusiveness in it, and all of it's based on some things that make sense, but can be very distorted. So and I met my wife and partner Jane there. She was a spiritual seeker, and we married. And we said, hey, why can't we get direct access to the source like he does? I mean, does he have some kind of monopoly on it, or know something we can't know? And that led us to leaving the group, which means you get ostracized and shamed and shunned by people who were your best friends and you associated with for years. Seems strange still to me. All this is very strange, I guess, coming to some people. This is just what happens. To other people like myself, like, it just doesn't really make sense. But a lot of things don't make sense that people do. And again, it's programming, which is part of hypnotherapy, which when we left the Gurdjieff Ouspensky group, Brian, we started looking into ways to waking up, and we realized that healing, energetic healing, was actually an essential piece that was really badly, sorely missing in this group. So how do you do that? We went in to study hypnotherapy intensely, channeling, other methods, alternative methods of healing, Reiki and so forth. And we started individually practicing and having clients, teaching classes, eventually writing books. Meanwhile, we were doing this part-time because we had to make a living, or we wanted to make a living. Jane was an architect, my wife and partner, Jane Mountrose. I was an educator teacher. For Jane, it became so stressful and in a kind of way meaningless that she burnt out, had chronic fatigue, couldn't even go to work anymore. For me, a little bit later, it just sort of lost the luster of teaching children, although I liked it and it was very valuable and I learned how to do it. It wasn't my passion. And I think there's a lot of people listening, and maybe you can relate to this, where maybe you're doing something, maybe you're even good at it, but it's not really what you want to do. It's not your thing. It's not driving you. It doesn't really give life much meaning.
Yeah, it's a very interesting thing, Philip, that I talk about it with a lot of the people I work with, and it's being in alignment with our own truth, and being able to actually understand what it is that energetically and mentally and emotionally we are putting into something just to make a living that is completely out of alignment. And I think that that's something, of course, that as you were saying before, like, there's all of this programming, there's all of this conditioning that people have, and I see this with a lot of the people I work with. It's like, we need to find a way to get comfortable with making some big decisions so that they don't reach the moment of complete burnout or of complete like chronic fatigue, or all of those different symptoms that are just symptoms of showing one is out of alignment.
Yes, to preempt it, to do it early on. And I, in some ways, it may be easier now just because so much more is available and there's more help and so forth. And we became teachers, trainers. We wrote a lot of books. Our newest book is The Loving Power of Your Soul. We could talk a little bit about that. And it's about how people connect consciously with their soul, which is actually a moment-to-moment experience. Anyone can do at any moment. and also using that for awakening, healing the shadow, which is part of that journey of waking up as well. So that's what we started doing eventually full time. And that was our passion. And we've been very fortunate to do it now with our nonprofit organization. We founded one called Awakenings Institute. And it's devoted, our mission is devoting to making the world a better, more loving place where everyone's gifts are honored, including nature.
Beautiful. And thank you for sharing all of that, because I think that there's so many things that we can talk about. And
Yes.
The first thing from what you mentioned that I want to touch on a little bit more is about the understanding that a lot of times we need to heal, and we need to heal energetically. I know that's been my path. That was a path of reconnecting and of doing a lot of energy healing and doing a lot of different things that now it's what I've been actually doing in terms of work as well for many years. But it was something that I needed to do so that I could open up to the new and to receiving the energies and to receiving all of the alignment and vibrations and frequencies that were there, that my being wasn't receiving it just because of all of the energetic blockages that I had. So I'm curious if you can expand a little bit more on that part of the energy healing, both for you that you touched on a little bit, and also for the people that you work with. What's the importance of it?
Right. Well, let me start with a story that might share some of the answer in a narrative here. One of the ladies who took we have a holistic coaching and healing program where we go in depth with a small group of people. And one lady joined our course. She used to be in the corporate world. She got in a marriage that was a difficult marriage. She felt kind of directionless, and she was sort of at that burnout, wondering what to do with her life. And she was looking at our course and was saying, maybe this is it. I'm hopefully kind of praying, skeptical, kind of coming from the corporate prove it to me world, dismissive world. And yet she really fell in love with it and took it fully. And she changed herself. She changed her relationship, found a new relationship, and went into the mental health field with our training and more, and is living a wonderful life, an impassioned life, a meaningful life, a life that's contributing. And wherever you feel at odds and it may be something you're noticing by either, usually it shows up, Brian, in physical discomfort, injury, or illness, or emotional discomfort, negative emotions, restrictive emotions, doubt, fear, anger, frustration, those kind of things. And so that's a sign, a signal that there's something, as you said, out of alignment. Can everything be put back into perfect harmony? Sometimes yes, sometimes miraculously yes, sometimes no, or sometimes there's a lot of layers, or it takes a while, or it's part of your life plan to deal with this. But that is a real actually help, even though it is an unpleasant, a bitter pill, shall we say, an organic pill, organic process to go through, to help you awaken, to do what you're here to do, to discover your gifts, your talents, the things you're really passionate about, so you can develop those and share them with the world and make the world a better place, and in the process, evolving yourself.
Yes, that something I just said reminded me that one of my teachers, when we were practicing a form of Tibetan yoga, that it was a practice that one of the main focuses at that point during my own practice was about finding the blockages in my system, the energetic blockages, and to be able to release them. And my teacher, I remember that he said once, he told me, fall in love with wanting to go towards your blockages, because there is the only thing that is on the way for you to reach your full potential. once you release all of those blockages, there's your full potential. And I thought in that moment, I thought that's such a wonderful way to look at it, because a lot of times, and this was, some of the things that when I was younger, I didn't want to look at, or a lot of the people I work with don't want to look at, because a lot of times we don't want to go towards those blockages. We don't want to go towards that density. And that is what's in the way.
Right. And it's all embedded. A lot of it is repressed, unconscious. One time I remember I was driving my car and I just looked over at someone. I was at a stop signal and someone was washing their window on their car, and I had like a negative judgment about the person. And I don't even remember what it was that I was judging, which is, this is crazy stuff. But I was aware enough that I became negative, and I started looking at that. And you can very quickly actually track the levels of distortion in you once you understand it. And that's one of the things we teach. And it generally, the bottom line with the negative feelings, the restrictive feelings and negative limiting thoughts is a negative false sense of identity, a shame. Mm. So even though you're projecting, you're judging that person for whatever, I don't even know what it was. It could be anything. And these things happen. But the point is, we're doing this all day, every day, until we become conscious of it and wake up and see it and heal it, because it is very automatic. And sometimes just being aware of it is going to stop it. But sometimes it's deeper because it's teaching us something that we are here to find out. And then you can transcend it and bring that part into wholeness. So there, as you said nicely there, aptly, there is that opening, that portal of where we are blocked, like blocking the sun, blocking the light, blocking our soul's awareness. And then there is just our passions, like I was saying earlier, what you're passionate about. I would imagine you're passionate, say, about taking conscious action. It's something that's very relatively easy, maybe challenging at times for you to do. For me to teach spiritual growth and life purpose and healing is very natural and easy for me and exciting. But then there are times where things don't work out. I have challenges. I have inner critic things like the rest of us that I need to deal with that, or I have something physical happens that I have to address, and then I'll learn and grow from that, and then I can come back and learn more. If I came on the show and said, hey, I've never had any traumas, any problems, it's been a breeze, everything has been wonderful, I mean, who are you? What's wrong with you?
Yeah, I usually say to a lot of people, because I'm in a position of leadership, in a sense. I'm, I'm facilitating classes, workshop. I have a lot of people coming to see me. I teach at university, and I always like to state that I'm not perfect. I am still going through my own path. I am still going through everything that this human life in this material body brings, with all of the circumstances that are around me. And yes, I am way far from where I used to be, but there's still so much more. And I think that based on what you were saying earlier about, the gurus or the teachers, or having a figure in any kind of setting that is kind of like, that is the person, and that's like the enlightened being. It's a very interesting dynamic, and it's one of the reasons why I usually, and I don't know about you, I usually don't like for people to call me teacher or guru or any of those words, because I know the unconscious belief and dynamic that brings, in terms of someone is higher than the other one, someone knows and the other one doesn't know. And I don't like for anybody to put me into that position, and I don't like for them to put themselves in that position that they are less than, because that's not true.
Right. And I think we're in agreement there, Brian. And I don't like to try to adopt some kind of guru position. And I can see people who are masterful or sort of masters at their craft, or some area, being, wow, I really want to, soak it up or teach me, how you became a master carpenter, a master teacher, a master actor, a master artist, whatever, they would have tremendous uh, wisdom and insights if they know how to teach, which is another skill. Some of them are great at it, but are not good at teaching and communicating. So fortunately, I had that teaching background, which has been helpful. Like, and you're a teacher too, which I can tell because you're quite clear in your communication.
Yeah, it's I think that it's a very interesting thing because yes, I have this background. Yes, I do that, and at the same time, I try to empower everyone to see the same way that I was introduced when I was introduced to the Tibetan Buddhist teachings when I was younger. I had one of my teachers that told me, and this was really interesting for me at least, that Buddha or all of these deities that one, uses for whether that's prayer or visualization or whatever, she told me this is not about us praying to that being or that energy. This is about us recognizing qualities and energies in those beings and calling for those in us. And that is one of the things that I, for someone that works with me or someone that comes to my classes and workshops, that is, if they see anything in me, that's what I want them to take away. It's not that I know more or not that it's just that I have been doing certain work on myself. And if they haven't done that yet and they recognize, that's something that I want for myself, recognizing that and calling for that instead of having this weird dynamic of, I know, you don't know, you need to listen to me. And right. I am the one that holds the power.
Right. Going back to that old paradigm, that polarity. And in our teachings, also in our classes, and in our new book, The Loving Power of Your Soul. When I say we, I mean my wife and partner, Jane Mountrose. It's not some theoretical abstract way. We do want to empower people. And in a nutshell, it is to help people recognize the truth within themselves. And that is connecting consciously with the soul and doing the conscious healing and bringing that part back into the fold, into your wholeness, and integrating it so your soul evolves and awakens even more and has that experience, that brightening, that empowerment as it goes on its journey by helping yourself and then helping others.
Yeah. Would you mind sharing, Philip, a little bit more about the book and some of the topics that you go into it?
Yes, this book, The Loving Power of Your Soul, we've written quite a few books, my wife and partner. This one is really an encapsulation, a how-to, very easy to read, a lot of research and case studies as well, a how-to on connecting with your soul for evolution and healing. And the three parts of the book, just real briefly, is we call it preparation. Part 1, part 2 is activation, and part 3 is transformation. And in part 1, Brian, we in The Loving Power of Your Soul, we prepare by connecting with the parts of ourselves and using them consciously. So we have our physical body, using that more consciously. And we all have some development naturally. Some of this just happens automatically, of course, as we grow up as human beings. But as we become more soulful and awaken, we can use our body more consciously. And it may be part of your gifts to do things with your body, healing or athletics or movement. And then there's the emotional part of your body, your emotions, and being more connected with other people, social and sensitivities in how things are feeling. And you can develop emotional intelligence. And then there's your mental intelligence, developing your thoughts so you have instead of all the automatic 70, 80,000 thoughts a day. And most of it's just programming. It's just playing records, playing tapes over and over again repetitive, a lot of them very negative, a lot of them may be very, some of them may be positive, but a lot of them are really limiting our possibilities, or just, and then becoming aware of that and consciously working with neutralizing the negative ones and empowering and emphasizing the more positive ones for our life purpose, and being more spiritually aware how things are connected spiritually. So when we awaken, like that story I told about myself with the Gurdjieff Ouspensky group, and looking out how do I connect with those intelligences, that's what the journey is. And that's the first part of the loving power of your soul, and also how it relates to meditation and mindfulness. And there's an overlap. You could say soulfulness, connecting with your soul, is a kind of mindfulness, paying attention to your mind. That's really just part of it. And meditating, but it's really an ongoing meditation. You don't have to sit. And there are limitations, as we write about in meditation. It can be an escapism. It can be not listening to your soul. Your soul's saying, here's a message for you. Don't bother me. I'm not paying attention to anything. I'm meditating now. So there are some limits there, and yet there's a lot of tremendous value, as we know, too. So that's the first part of the book, the preparation. And the second part, activation in the loving power of your soul, is 6 ways that we've developed over the years, pretty easy ways to connect consciously with your soul. Most people think connecting with your soul is a rare event, or maybe I'll do it a few times, or I don't have any idea. I know it must be there, but not sure. So and then it does come in times of beauty. I mean, we think, wow, that's a beautiful sunrise, and then you feel very present and awesome, and yeah, that feels soulful, and that is true. And then there are times of huge crisis and tragedy, where you're just, maybe your life is at stake, or something of that nature, where you feel very present. You're aware of everything. You're very in that moment intensely. Yes, you are soulfully aware, and you're listening to your soul, and you hear the voice of your soul. But we can do it right now, as you know, moment to moment, breath to breath. And as you get more of a sense of it, and doing these little ways to connect with the soul that we write about, at first it might take a few minutes to get used to it, but you could practice it as a meditation. Then you become more and more intimate with your soul. And the third part of the book, the transformation, is using energy healing. We have 2 of them. We particularly go into is a holistic EFT. We have we're one of the early adopters of the emotional freedom techniques, and we have kind of a more holistic approach to it, how to use that for awakening. And second, something we developed called spiritual kinesiology. And the kinesiology, which is muscle testing, is just a part, actually a small part of it. It's using that consciousness of connecting with your soul and getting input and advice, and healing from it, which can be quite astonishing. So that will help you integrate your soul awareness. So that's sort of the book in a little nutshell.
Beautiful.
Synopsis.
Yeah. I think like it's so interesting, and I see this on a lot of the people that I work with. All of these different parts that for some people they are mixed together. Some they go through them really fast, some go step by step. And I think that one of the things that I find really interesting as I explore with more and more people, and I see more and more, is how we're all different and how we're all similar. And how to actually connect with what you're calling that soul, that for other people they might have another word for it.
Yes.
I recognize the energetic of what you mean by soul, therefore I can connect with it. And I think that when we are aligned to that, we can actually resonate with the different ways that we can get closer and closer to being open to being all of the time. And that's one of the things that I think that it's so important, that I always try to share, that when someone says meditation, for example, most people think of, I need to close my eyes, I need to sit, and I need to be completely still and have no thoughts. And it's like, well, that is a meditation technique or a way of meditation. For me, I always say meditation is a way of being. How do we integrate? And you were saying this, how do we integrate all of this? How do we heal those parts of us that have been blocked, all of those energetic blockages, so that we can be more in alignment? And I think that the more that people are open to that, they start to resonate more. So someone resonates with EFT, someone resonates with kinesiology, someone resonates with meditation, someone resonates with Reiki, someone resonates with a whole lot of different practices. And that is one of the things that I always invite everyone to explore. What do they resonate with? And go and find someone that does that, if one hasn't yet developed the way to do it themselves.
Good advice. I would agree. Right. Find that and just be open to opportunities. Just see, because it often is quite unexpected. Something comes your way, and if you're alert, if you're open, and it might be something you've never experienced before. It often is, or is some possibility like, I never considered that. Why is that showing up? Take a look at that. And it doesn't mean every single thing you want to be discerning, every single thing you should follow. But it might be there for a reason.
Definitely. And I want to know, Philip, from what you were saying, and one of the things that I took from what you were saying about the book, that is about purpose. What would you say to someone that haven't found their purpose?
Right. Well, first of all, of course, it sounds like in your question, the person though is wanting to find their purpose. Is that what you're also asking?
Yes.
I mean, some people are at a point where they're in survival and they're really not at all. They're interested in just sort of getting through the day, and there might be a lifetime like that. And actually for many people, and that, but for those people who are kind of wanting to wake up, realize there's more to life, kind of, as I said, you know, when I was in my 20s and that film didn't work, and I said, hey, there's got to be more. I mean, there's some reason. I mean, why am I here? You know, what's going on? And a lot of searching and energy went into that. So I think your advice about just following things that are of interest and you have a strong interest or passion for is good. And what we call our life purpose formula that we discuss and we write and teach about is it's rather simple, but I find it extremely accurate. And I almost, when I say it, I almost scratch my head, because you know, life purpose is really not a formula, and it continues to change and evolve, and as you change and evolve yourself. But there are sort of guidelines or contours or things that and it has to do with your soul plan, by the way. What's my soul plan? Well, your purpose, we're going to kind of work backwards, start where you are now to answer your question. And this, as you start to find suggestion, sort of a sketch like an artist of your purpose, actually that is what your soul plan is. Your soul is trying to communicate to you. It came in with not a fixed destiny, but guidelines or things you wanted to find out. And obviously, you know, you have certain genetics and family and environments and stuff that are pretty set, although fluid and changeable. Okay, so let's answer, what is this formula Phillip Mountrose is talking about? What's he talking about? Okay, so you start with your things that you are passionately interested in or good at, your talents. Interesting question, Brian, is where do your talents come from? Where are things that you were naturally good at? How did you become naturally good? Like one person is naturally good at sports, the other person can, you know, learn a language or play an instrument just easy as can be, and the next person, like, how do you do that? You know, for me, it's very challenging. Where did those talents come from? That's an interesting thing to think about.
Yeah.
So the way I understand it, they come from source or oneness or your previous lifetimes. You know, that's kind of part of your innate soulful package that you've your particular, you said we're all different but the same. That differentness, that uniqueness is in those talents, those God-given talents. Okay, so what are they? And it may take a little while because they may be so close that you take them for granted. You can ask other people, you know, to get input who know you. they probably could tell you, actually, maybe easier than yourself if you're starting this journey out. And so what's the second part? There's two parts of the formula, you put them together. So that's part one. The second part is, how would you like to see the world be a better place? Question. How would you like to improve the world? Now, of course, there's many, many things we'd like to see in a better world, but generally there's certain adjectives, certain descriptors that stand out. You know, for you, for example, Brian, if the world would be a more what place? Give me a couple words.
Loving, kind, connected.
Mm-hmm. Very good. A loving, kind, connected world. So, yeah, and I say loving, creative, prosperous world. And sometimes I get new adjectives, or they kind of, the valences or the tones change a little bit. But okay, so in your case, you would be wanting to make the world a loving, kind, more connected place. Now that sounds so big and abstract. You wonder, well, how would I do that? Well, that goes back to the first part of the formula. You would take the gifts and talents and interests that you're passionate about. Being a podcaster, tell me, tell me if I'm, and you said do you enjoy teaching?
Yeah, I love it.
Okay, so you love teaching. Do you enjoy the podcasting?
Yes.
You love podcasting, teaching, and there may be some other things too. So you would be saying, I'm going to be a podcaster and a teacher, and maybe some other things to help the world become a more loving, kind, connected place. So then what presents itself today and tomorrow is, is this something where I could use my teaching and podcasting talents to make the world a more loving, kind, connected place? And that's sort of a soulful connection. It sort of resonates. Didn't you use the word resonate earlier?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's going to feel like, yeah, that's a good idea. I mean, like, say, environmentalism and climate change. I'm very concerned about that, but that's not my mission. That's not the area where I specialize in, so that wouldn't be where I would put my energies in my skills. And my skill set may not be the best even for that. But in teaching, healing, and spiritual growth, I'm a natural at it. And it's just something it just comes to me naturally. Just like some people can play a violin and it's the easiest thing in the world. And other people like, how do you do that?
Okay.
And you use that, and that's the quote formula, the life purpose formula that we write about and teach.
Beautiful. Yeah, and I use the word resonate a lot because that is how I've been finding my way and how I got to all of the things that I'm doing, how I'm contributing in this world, and how I'm sharing my gifts, because I do believe that we all have gifts to share, and it's about finding how to be able to step out of this normalized wheel that people have been stuck in, as you said, with that survival mode where the majority of the population is, and to step out of that and to be able to do something that resonates on a deeper level, whether someone wants to call it soul level or a different word, that it resonates there. And I think a lot of times, of course, there's a lot of tells. There's, like when something is draining you or stressing you out, well, question, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? And of course, I always acknowledge the privilege that I have and the position that I have to be able to, not being on survival mode, to be able to actually question and do this, and to be able to do something that for me is meaningful in my life and for others, being a healer, a practitioner, a teacher, being able to share all of these things. It's a way that for me it's fulfilling each moment, and it's not something as you were saying, like waiting until the end of life, it's kind of like, well, like I want to live my life now in alignment, and I want to contribute to that which is coming from the deepest part of me. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's step by step, one step at a time, one moment at a time, one day at a time. And sometimes you're not sure, and that's okay. There may be times where you have to be patient, kind of let the dust settle, let the air clear, the fog lift too. That's part of it.
Yes, definitely. And I have a big question, perhaps, and that is, what is the one thing that you wish everyone in the world knew?
I think it's what we've been talking about, that it's actually very easy to connect and live by the light of your soul. And it seems like it's a journey to get there, even though it's very simple and straightforward. This is not something that you need a special talent for, but you need a certain amount of consciousness and evolution to get to the point where you see what's right there in front of you the whole time. Dorothy saying, I've been clicking her heels, she's back in Kansas, it's been there the whole time. But so you need to go through the journey, but just know that it is there, you're supported and you're loved. That's another thing, you're supported and you're loved, even at times which can seem like very difficult or abandoning or terrifying times.
Beautiful. Yeah, I think it's really important for people as well to know that that's there. And just because something is simple doesn't mean that it's going to be easy. For some people it will, for some people it might be more challenging, but it is simple. And that's what I love a lot of times about different practices and about working with energy. There's such a simplicity that, like, a lot of times it's kind of like that's there all the time, like I don't need to go and search for it outside, and and it might be that way for someone, but for others it might be an easy journey. So yeah, and beautiful. Right. And Philip, how can people connect with you if they want to work with this, if they resonate with what you're sharing?
Right. I have a couple of shortened URLs, Brian, for people to easily remember this. So we have a free download, a spiritual holistic healing kit for an excerpt from our new book, The Loving Power of Your Soul, an holistic EFT unique video, some spiritual healing resources, and this free gift, this kit, spiritual kit, they go to tinyurl.com/spiritual-kit, tinyurl.com/spiritual-kit. And that's really our website, which is getting thru.org. But it's easier to remember the tinyurl.com/spiritual-kit. And if people want to work with us individually or talk to us, maybe we can help them heal and awaken. And even if they're wherever they are in the world, because of the internet, we can connect via Zoom and so forth. And they could talk to either me or my wife, Jane Mountrose, at tinyurl.com/heal-awake, tinyurl.com/heal-awake to connect with us there.
Beautiful. And I will put those links as well on the show notes so that everyone can access it easily. Thank you, Philip, for your time, for sharing everything that you're doing and your perspectives. For everyone listening, let us know what resonated with you. What did you learn? Was there something that was interesting? And if you are interested in knowing more and working with Philip, please go to the links, and we will see everyone on the next episode. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Brian.
What did you like the most about this episode? Take a moment to think about what change you can make in your life today.
Share your conscious action on social media using #ConsciousAction and tagging @ConsciousActionNZ so we can celebrate your impact on the world and create a ripple effect.
One easy action we would love for you to take right now is to share, like, and subscribe to this podcast. This will help us get these messages out into the world and inspire more people to take conscious action in their own lives, contributing to the better world we hope for.